Well, hello. Welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast, where we talk with writers from all mediums and genres about themselves, their work, and advice they have for writers. I'm your host, Paul Zeidman, and my guest today is author Renee Zukin. We're going to be talking about her new book, Every Day I'm Brave, Cultivating Resilience to Gain Freedom from Fear. I guess kind of like a memoir type of thing, but also like a bit of a self-help thrown in as well. Renee, welcome to the Creative Writing Life podcast.
Thank you, Paul. So excited to be here.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. I will start things off real quick. I read the book; it's fascinating, and there's a lot to dig into when we get into actually digging into the book. But we'll get to that in just a minute. But for those who are familiar with the show, we'd like to start things off talking about did anything we may have read or watched lately. How did we feel about it? Like it, dislike it, indifferent, what have you. I'll go first just to give Renee a few moments to collect her thoughts. Had some recent plane travel, so it was a long enough flight that I was able to split up watching Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning into two parts. So that should work because it's a 3 hour movie. So I enjoyed it. It moves very quickly for a 3 hour movie. And what was really surprising is that it's a lot of sequences. So they'll say like, oh, here's what we have to do, and then they'll show them going through it and all the things that go wrong and how they compensate for that. And it was enjoyable, and I think Tom Cruise had a good time doing it. But boy, he puts himself through so much hell for the production of those. Just watching everything that he did, you can kind of tell it's him, unless it's amazing CGI work. But I'm going to go with the theory that a lot of the stunts he did himself. I also watched a movie on the plane, but it's also on HBO Max now. It's called Drop, which is kind of like a suspense thriller. This woman goes out on a date and she keeps getting these ominous text messages about having to keep doing these terrible, terrible things. And over the course of the evening, it was fun. Nothing that memorable. I don't need to see it again. And the other thing is, saw it in the theaters was Spinal Tap 2. And which is only an hour and 23 minutes
Oh
long,
my
which is the
gosh.
ideal length because it hits the marks that it has to. It tells the jokes that it needs to, and it was fun. Again, I don't think it's not as impactful as the first one, but still, it's a good follow up to that one. So that's it for me. Renee, how about you? Anything on the reading
Well,
or
I
watching
just gotta,
front?
I just gotta say, Spinal Tap. So they re-released it in the theaters here locally, the first one.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and so we saw that a couple months ago, so had the refresher and all that. But I didn't even realize that they made a second one, which is probably right why they re-released it. So
To refresh your
I don't know
memory.
on yeah on your recommendation. I don't know that I'll spend a lot of money on it, but maybe
I
I'll try
think
to
if
find it.
it's probably worth seeing it in the theater more than just waiting for it to come on streaming at home. I think because it's so short and it really if the first one is still fresh in your mind, then a lot of the I guess the jokes and the scenarios over the course of the second one really they hit a little stronger.
That's good. Yeah, good. All right, well, I'll check that out. Well, I'm super excited about this invitation to think about things. Because I don't tend to watch a lot of movies. I love movies, but the time to sit
Sure.
down for that. But I did just finish watching a Netflix series called Feel Good, which actually came out like 5 years ago. Comedian Mae Martin um
Okay.
was in it, and I think co-wrote it and probably produced and directed. Anyway, it was really fascinating. And I love the way that they developed um characters and um the struggle of the main character who's played by May. Um just really with some like unknown PTSD. Like so often we go through our lives and like, oh, I'm just messed up. I don't know why, right? And you kind of get the story trickled through the series. But I just thought that one, it was funny, but it's there's also some dark humor, which can
Hmm.
be we got to have the joy and the pain that coexist. That's what life really is. And
Hmm.
so I definitely loved it. I probably um the binge watch early that kept me up a little too late a couple nights in a row, but so well worth it. And then I just picked up Elizabeth Gilbert's new book, all the way to all the way to the river. Um, I'm not very far into it, but already I know I'm gonna like it. I like a lot of the stuff that she writes, anyways.
What genre would that be considered?
For it's memoir.
Okay.
And I know she's written fiction and nonfiction, and Big Magic, which was really kind of a tool for creativity and writing that probably came out over a decade ago, is one of my favorite of hers too.
Okay, well, that's great. So Feel Good and Elizabeth Gilbert. Okay, so Renee Zukin, we are here to talk to you today primarily about your book, Every Day I'm Brave. But let's talk a little bit about you and your background. Now, you're not from what I understand, you're not primarily a writer. Oh, you know what? You know what I forgot to do? I like to read the bio
Oh,
of the
yay!
guest. It's on the back. It's been a couple of weeks since I've recorded, so it's a
All
little
good.
rusty. Renee Zukin is an author and mentor with more than 20 years of experience in education, writing, and entrepreneurship combined. In addition, she has spent decades studying multiple psychological and healing modalities that have sustained her and helped support her students and clients alike. She is passionate about cultivating a safe space for others to use the written word as a tool for self-transformation and empowerment. Renee earned her Bachelor of Arts in Language and Literature from the University of Michigan and her Master of Arts in Teaching from the University of Iowa. In addition, she has studied mindfulness for educators, restorative justice, and community circles. She is a lifelong learner of personal growth and a passionate proponent of living consciously. My goodness, that's quite a mouthful.
That's a lot, I
It
guess.
is. It is. Okay, so let's get so let's dig into a little bit more into that. So this is your first book,
Hmm.
from what I understand.
Correct.
So, but it also says that you an author and that you've done a lot of writing before. So were you the what kind of writing were you doing in the past? I mean, was it because this is a memoir, so obviously we're doing a whole bunch of memoirs over the
Right,
years.
right. Well, I've always been, kind of nonfiction essay, article writing, um, bits and pieces throughout my life. I, worked in education. I worked in both as an educator and in corporate education, and so I did a lot of I mean, I've run the gamut. I've
Mhm.
written poetry, short stories, did a lot of ghost writing,
Mhm.
test items, you name it, like and now I do a lot of work with marketing and copywriting too. So basically the written word is something that I've generally got my hands in some way, even if the focus is it has been different over the course of my
Sure.
life. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So, what was it that led to, I guess, the inspiration? What was it the motivation for you to say, I'm going to write this book? And what was it that I guess inspired you to finally sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do this now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, finally, inspired is the right words. This book had really been kind of tapping me on the shoulders for almost a decade. One of the things that, the joys of social media, along with its disadvantages, is that I was able to kind of share some of my experience with anxiety and OCD and other mental health challenges in such a way that, not that I was dumping, but I would often kind of publicly celebrate the learning.
Hmm.
Um, and what I found was the more that I did that, the more folks would say to me, thank you for, kind of talking through what you were going through and what you learned. This is really hopeful. I feel the same way. Or I'd get other people's stories. Oh, the same thing happened to me, or I've been feeling the same
Hmm.
way. And so this thread of really normalizing the struggles that we go through, the self-doubt, the inner critic, and then some of the more serious stuff too. Um, Not that that isn't serious, but was was what I found was a way for me to connect more deeply with other people,
Hmm.
um, which can be especially difficult. Anxiety and depression like to lie
Hmm.
to folks and tell them that they're alone and it's hopeless. And so as I was doing this more and more, I started a blog back in, I don't know, 2008, maybe, that I didn't end up keeping up with, but there were some snippets of the story there. Um, and then of course life went on. But about 3, 4 years ago, that tap on the shoulder really became more of a, okay, now it's
Mhm.
time. We need this now. And really post pandemic.
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm really going to do this, I want to do it right. I want to do it well. And I really want it to be something that shows up in service. So even though it's memoir, and it's written first person, it's my story. I also wanted to infuse it with ways that other people could see themselves reflected and kind of work through the process and do the learning. Um, so it took about 3 years in total, but it really has been a labor of love.
Hmm.
And as I worked through it, and my own insecurities in writing and putting something, so private out there publicly, I just kept returning to that. This is showing up in service. This is going to help. If it helps one other person, I've done my job.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that also opens up to a lot of the questions that I've already come up with. But I guess what I think the first thing I'd like you to go into a little bit, we call it the elevator pitch or the cocktail party pitch. Someone says, "Oh, Renee, I hear you're working on a book. What's it about?"
Mm.
And you would say,
Transforming my relationship with fear so that I could live a better life.
"Oh, okay, great." And can you go into a little bit more
Yeah,
detail?
it's a very long elevator.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's the process with which I have been able to learn how to take fear alongside with me, because my life had been very, very small,
Hmm.
because, I was doing everything I could to avoid feeling afraid. Um, and there's a lot of scary things out there in the world,
Hmm.
but
Right.
there's a lot of beautiful things too.
That's true. That's true. And one of the things I did want to ask you, I think you kind of go into this a little bit in the beginning of the book, that the title, Every Day
Mm.
I'm Brave. I would love for you to delve into that just a little bit.
Yeah. Um, it really was this moment in time. So I was in a pretty low state at the time, and I was really looking around at everybody else and kind of comparing myself to what other people were doing. At the time, I had a partner who traveled internationally for work. He was frequently getting on airplanes, something I hadn't done. And, at the time, almost 15 years, I had refused. I was never going to get on a plane again. Um, or I would be looking at social media and my friends would be having a dinner party or this potluck or going on a girls' trip or whatever. And these were things that I just simply felt I couldn't do. I was working my job, I was raising my kids, and I was so afraid of so many things that I just felt like, I'm never going to be able to do this. Um, and then I got angry and I was like, well, okay, what about the fact that I got out of bed today? Like,
Mm.
that was really brave. What about the fact that, I continued to show up at this job and make my life work, even though, XYZ? And I was like, that was really brave. And it became this, like, you know what? I'm actually brave every day. I don't have to ride in an airplane. I don't have to, jump out of a parachute. What you name it. Like, and this phrase, every day I'm brave, became really a mantra to kind of get me out of my own hole. But because I realized I didn't have to compare my courage to anybody else's.
Hmm.
And what's scary for one person isn't for another. And that's true no matter what. I mean, everybody's afraid of something. And so it really was this freedom that came. And by showing up and realizing that this bravery is a spectrum, and even what feels possible for me in one day and not the next, right, is
Hmm.
this constant. That's where kind of that every day comes in, is like you get to try at every turn one more time to practice bravery, to practice courage. And little by little, it allowed me to kind of to it amped me up. I was like, okay, I am brave. All right, I can do this. Right. And then that little pep talk really turned into a decade of work
Hmm.
that's gotten me to where I am today.
Oh, that's great. One of the things I did want to ask you that previous guests on the show, they've talked about how writing about their own personal experiences and traumas that they've been able to survive, that they found it very cathartic to kind of get it out of their system onto the page, and that a lot of them saw it as a kind of therapy. Now, was that your experience? Because you go through a lot of the traumatic things that you've experienced over your life leading up to writing the book, that was it kind of how did you approach that? Did you think, okay, I have to do this. This is something I just have to get it out of my system, or this is, I can't be the only one who has gone through this kind of thing. I want to try and help people. Was it a combination of everything, a few other details?
Yeah, definitely all of the above.
Hmm.
And writing for me has always been healing and cathartic. And more so, I think it's allowed me to just see what I'm thinking and feeling from a whole new perspective. And sometimes, and I can't remember exactly the quote, but I think it's Joan Didion who said, I don't know what I think until I write it down or something like that.
Hmm.
you know, and I definitely feel that way. And so for me, the process of writing the book, 100% was cathartic and healing. I knew it would be, but I didn't know exactly how. And one of the things that I can speak to now is this otherness of the experience. Like the book really becomes something outside of myself.
Hmm.
So all that stuff that I had been challenged by and still are, right? I've got the tools, I'm still using my tools, but it became something separate from me. And I think that's really vital. We talk about expression. So whether you're writing or you're painting or you're singing or whatever it is, movement even, right? Being able to move through these challenging feelings and experiences, um, it changes the energy of it and it changes its hold. Like, so 100% doing this writing was healing for me. And I think, I mean, from the feedback I've been getting from my, the early readers, the folks who've already read the book, that folks are taking away some pieces that they can use to feel better as well, which is also why I included the journal prompts.
Yeah, yeah. I did want to ask you, especially because you talk about all of these things that you've got experienced, that was it challenging or even difficult to be so open and to a certain extent vulnerable in writing about these? And also, I mean, you also talk throughout the book about your relationships and your kids. I mean, how did they respond to? I mean, were you getting feedback from them while you were writing on the book, or was it kind of like, here, read this, like, oh my God, mom?
Yeah, right, right. It's interesting. It, through the process, I was worried about, especially the people who are named in the book, right? How it was going to feel and how it was going to impact them. But I tried to have, as many open conversations as I could, but I also really took the the time to carefully craft how I was telling each of these pieces of the story that other people are characters in. And and it helped me to shape it, right? Because this is about me. It's not about them.
Hmm.
And and so while everything in there is 100% true, um I I wanted to craft it in such a way um that it wasn't really telling about other people. I
Hmm.
don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of like they're like supporting characters in your
Ex-
story.
exactly, exactly. And so, and I'd ask them if they want to read things or if they, and for the most part, everybody's like, no, I'm good, And then of course, legally they, had to release that I could
Sure.
use their name. Um, and so they have read the snippets and things. And I guess no news was good news because nobody said, change this, take this out. This is
Right.
horrible. In fact, my mom sent me a note after, and she said, thank you for realizing that I've always been on your side.
Hmm.
It was like I actually cried my eyes out because,
Yeah.
it's hard to be a parent and watch your adult children, now that my children are adults, go through things. And, um, it's different when they're older. And so,
It is. It
yeah.
really is. I wanted to ask, so all of the things that are in the book, how did you decide what to include, but also what not to include? Did you ever think, okay, that's too much or that's going too far, I can't do that? And also, were there things that you wanted to include, but thought, yeah, that might be a little too much, or did you just feel totally uninhibited and think it's all going in, warts and all?
No, no, no. I definitely, well, I took, when I say I took care to, I knew I needed somebody else's eyes. So even before editing stages, I hired a writing coach to help me kind of organize. I wanted this to really be a strong character arc, the hero's journey, the Shiro's journey. And in order to do that, I needed to pick and choose what were the stories that told this particular transformation. Right. And a lot of people, I think, when you think memoir, you think, oh, it's a timeline of their whole life. And that's not true. A biography, yes, but for
Hmm.
memoir, so I got some help in figuring out, both from my coach and then the developmental editor, who really helped me decide what to include and what not to include. And what I found actually was that I actually had to add things from my first draft. I mean, there were of course multiple drafts, but
Sure, sure.
my first full manuscript draft was very holy, and I don't mean sacred. so, um, so yeah, and it was good to have that kind of overarching North Star to help me decide what stayed and what went. And I did take out a few things.
Hmm.
But but it really was what's gonna teach the lesson, which story is gonna match the lesson, which story is gonna tell the truest picture of the transformation.
Okay, actually, now that you mentioned that, I did that is something I wanted to ask you about. So at the end of each chapter, you have a page that's entitled Brave Reflection, and that offers the readers, I guess, like some exercises to implement the information and lessons that were laid out in that chapter. Now, was that always part of the plan, or was that something you thought, oh, you know what, there's a learning experience here, and someone who was reading this might be able to incorporate that into incorporate their own lives or their own details into it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was definitely like a should I, shouldn't I for a little while.
Hmm.
Um, and then it was also like, once I decided that I wanted to make sure that there were some reflection elements or self-help or tools or things, um, then I had to decide, okay, how are we going to structure those? Is it going to be an appendix at the end of the book? Is it going to be each chapter, that sort of thing? So there were definitely some decisions that we made about how it was going to show up with the learning. Um, and then the journal prompts were actually the last thing that I wrote.
Hmm. Okay. So another key component of the book is overall, like how we face and how we deal with our fears. So, from a writing perspective, and you alluded to this a little bit before, did writing and releasing the book help you in that regard? Like, when you started on the project, were you thinking, "Oh, are people going to like this?" Or am I, I know, I've written all this other kinds of stuff before, but have I done memoir? And is it a totally different animal, totally different world? I mean, were you able to, I guess, as your title implies, were you brave about taking on this new project?
Yes, every step of the way, I had to practice newer brave muscles. um 100%. I mean, there was just the standard every day. Is anybody going to like this? Am I really a writer? How does this sound? Oh, this is off. Your typical artist struggle, right? Like, oh, this is going to be and so just, letting that tape roll and moving ahead anyway, continuing to, get the support of my coaches and editors. And then there was the process of, oh my gosh, somebody else is going to read this, right?
Okay.
That moment of realization, right? Not only did I write it, okay, and sure, some editors and some close people, but holy cats, somebody who I don't know is going to read this. They're going to have opinions. They're going to have judgments. They're going to, what do I do with that? And so that was a process, right? Of letting go. Okay, I'm going to work on, not attaching to other people's feelings about it. And then the larger visibility, right? So I've spent the last 4 or 5 years or so really honing my business online marketing. I teach and train with another company doing that, and there's something innately scary about visibility. But any writer, right, or any artist out there who wants to have people, purchase their work needs to get visible. And so I actually hired somebody specifically to kind of help me work through these fears and beliefs about visibility, even from a whole like coming at it from a whole different angle, so that I could really break through some of these, beliefs and blocks that would get in the way of me continuing to move forward in the work. And I'm just super grateful that I've been able to connect with people who do, very cool work in the world and help other people get their message out there, because, we need more folks bravely, putting their hearts out into the world. So
Well, I just think it's fascinating that, you write about all of these ways you've been able to be brave and overcome all of these fears, and then you just like add a new one to it. Like I'm
yes,
gonna put out a book and realize, oh my gosh, people are actually gonna read this. It's almost like, oh, I forgot about that part.
right. Totally, totally. I was like, yeah. And it wasn't that long before it was about to be released that hit me.
And you did mention this earlier in the show that uh, I was wondering this while I was reading it, especially about the brave reflections at the end of each chapter, that I would imagine a lot of people have responded to you saying, I went through the same kind of thing. I have very similar experiences,
Yeah.
and it's easy to forget that a lot of people, they don't write a book about their experiences. So to see someone else who's gone through it and how you can relate to it, I mean, that must be really satisfying and uplifting for you that your book is really making an impact with all these people. And I imagine like people have come back to you and said, thank you for writing this, and words to that effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful. Each time somebody reaches out, it's really hard not to get emotional.
Hmm.
Um, because, you know, we we tend to isolate, folks who are really struggling. They don't want to be a burden to other people. So we don't talk about it, or we hide
Right.
from it, or we want to show up like, oh, we've got this, right? And there's a lot of shame in that. And so even for people to respond to me after reading takes a lot of courage. And I just really honor their bravery to do that. And like I don't even know if gratitude is represents the fullness of the emotion, but it feels like, not only have I gotten responses from people that say, oh yeah, me too, I've struggled with this, thank you for sharing it, but I've gotten some responses from people who maybe don't really struggle with anxiety, or aren't really clued into to some of the things, but they have loved ones who
Mhm.
do. And I had somebody text me and say, hi, I'm so and so's husband. I just finished your book. Thank you, because now I understand my wife in a way I never could have before.
And also because, and his wife probably wouldn't have felt comfortable opening up to him like that.
Right. Right. So, I get excited about the fact that this book and its message can bring so much more compassion and understanding between people.
Okay, that's great. One of the things I did want to ask you, so looking at the blog page on your website,
Mm,
that you list on the right side of the screen, numerous categories. Now, a lot of them are about writing, but you also have a lot that are about emotions and
mm,
sensations, anxiety, imposter syndrome, productivity, etc. So I also have a blog, but it's primarily about screenwriting.
mm.
But I write about my experience and just trying to write, and I have a lot of those as well. Yeah, I don't really have as much about anxiety, but I definitely
Sure.
I do. Well, it's there. It's an underlying theme, trust me.
Right.
But I've also talk about frustration, disappointment, but I also have
Mm,
encouragement and determination and persistence and perseverance. Do you find just any kind of writing? I mean, you talked earlier that you do a lot of, I guess we'll call it like business-oriented writing. But do you find, like, I think you talk about it a little bit in the book, like you did some creative writing early on that, and we also talked earlier about how writing is a kind of, therapy. It's very
mm,
cathartic.
mhm.
Just that, do you think that kind of like exploring your own creative process is helpful, but also it enables a little personal growth that enables you to kind of like I don't want to say forget your troubles, but it's a balm for what ails you type of thing.
Oh, absolutely. It is a balm for what ails you. I believe that creativity and our ability to be creative, again, whether that's through writing or some other means, um, lets us tap into a resource of like, I don't know, power and joy and like just this feel good energy that we don't get anywhere else.
Hmm.
Um, and so, regardless of the project, I love that you're speaking to, sure, in regards to screenwriting, right? These same sort of things that kind of can get in the way, and the same sort of things that you can celebrate about completing a project. I mean, I really believe that it's our human experience, right? Creativity is like, um, I don't know, it's fundamental to our
Hmm.
human experience here on Earth. And so I I love that you said it's a balm, because one of the things that I encourage people to do is to find one thing that they really create creative wise, right? I mean, this is why coloring books became popular for adults, right? It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to, write
I
this
mean,
world-renowned
I'm gonna write
symphony.
the great American novel.
Right, right. Exactly. It doesn't have to be some masterpiece, but you just got to do it for
Mhm.
its own sake, and it just can change. I think we also tap into a different part of the brain when we're being creative,
Mhm.
right? Our analytical brain, hopefully, when we really get in the zone, is going to kind of shut down and let your imagination run wild, and like, how fun is that?
Yeah, well, it definitely is. And I was going to say that it's also that the uniqueness of what it is you are creating, that nobody else could do that one thing, whether it's a story or it's a painting or, a
Mhm.
sculpture, that only you could come up with that. And it's that satisfaction of being able to do it. Of course, Dorothy Parker's thing, like, I hate writing, but I love having written. So,
Yes.
and a lot of
Yeah.
writers are like that anyway. But
The
for some
struggle.
writers,
Yeah.
including myself, I mean, I love the process of actually writing. And yeah,
Mm.
it's even better when I can look back and say, okay, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
But the process of going through actually writing something, and I don't know if it's not endorphin release, but it's that kind of like it's that kind of personal satisfaction.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love
Okay.
it.
So we've been talking today with Renee Zukin and her book, Every Day I'm Brave. Renee, so we talked before we started that you have a website, but you're about your social media. But where is the website that people can find out more about you and your books or your
You
book?
can, yes, you can go to www.everydayimbrave.com, And yes, someday there will be multiple books.
I did want to ask.
Right.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you have like plans for a second book or some kind of follow up to this one?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's a direct follow-up, but there's been a couple of things in the works that are, of course, sitting in the someday draft folder.
Hmm.
But I think it's probably sooner than later.
Okay, well that's
Yeah.
great. And where can people find you on the various social media platforms?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all Renee Zukin is my handle. So all one word, you can find me.
All right, great. And again, we've been talking with Renee Zukin and her book, Every Day I'm Brave. Renee, thank you so much for being here today. This was wonderful stuff.
An honor and a pleasure. So much fun, Paul. Thank you.
Well, I'm very glad. And viewers and listeners, if you enjoyed today's show, please hit like. Feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. For my social media, like I mentioned earlier, I've got my screenwriting blog, MaximumZ at MaximumZ.blog. I'm on Twitter at Maximum_Z, and Blue Sky and Instagram are at Pez Screenwriting. Those are my initials. And this show has its own online presence as well at Twitter, at Podcast CWL, and also Podcast CWL on Blue Sky. And of course, you can check out my Go Ahead and Ask books, the ones on Amazon about screenwriting and pie. Like I said, that's Renee. I'm Paul. This has been the Creative Writing Life podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, go write something.